everyone, thanks for joining me today. My name is Medya Ansari and I am an immigration attorney with Attorney Ansari Immigration Attorneys. I wanted to come on live because there's a lot of fear and confusion about recent announcements for immigrant visa pauses. There are a lot of confusion as to the previous travel bans multiple travel bans that were put in place last year, and the most recent immigrant visa pauses that were announced for 75 countries this year. Now, the main focus of my today's talk want to be about the immigrant visa pauses and kind of explain the differences between the travel bans that were placed last year for certain countries and in the current immigrant visa pauses that is for the last for the 75 countries that were announced earlier this year. And I want to talk to you guys about who it affects and clear a lot of the confusions around, what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing, and what is the difference between all these pauses that are bans versus pauses that are in place. That are in place. I have seen a lot of confusions and fears surrounding these announcements, and that what drove me into coming in live to talk to you guys. I've seen posts saying things like immigration is banned, my spouse will never be able to come, all green cards are canceled. Most of that is not accurate. And today I'm going to be explaining all of this to you in a plain English, in the simplest way, to hopefully bring some light into all of this and clear a lot of this confusion. I'm going to explain to you guys what is an immigrant visa pause actually is, how is it different from the travel bans that were announced, the 2 travel bans that were announced last year, who it affects and who does it not affect, and what should you be doing right now if you have a pending case, if you're thinking about filing, and so on and so forth. I do want to stress out that this is just the general information, not a legal advice, and for any case-specific matter, you do want to talk to an immigration attorney, but I hope that this will bring you some clarity and some peace of mind. Now, what was the actual announcement? And what does the immigrant visa pause mean? Earlier this year, the Department of State announced immigrant visa pauses for 75 countries. Now, a lot of these countries that are in this list were not on the travel ban list that were announced last year. If you're not sure if you are in this list of country ban, if your country is in the list of these country immigrant visa pauses, I will drop in the link at the comment section after the live, so you can find the list of all the countries, 75 countries that are in the list of this immigrant visa pause. But this list was expanded to include countries that were really unexpected, including Ethiopia, Thailand, Pakistan. So it includes 75 countries and that brought a lot of surprises to a lot of people and confusion to a lot of people. Now, an immigrant visa pause means that the U.S. consulates abroad are pausing the issuance of immigrant visas or the green card that are being issued through the U.S. consulate. This is not going to be applied to those who are in the U.S., so it is important to remember that this only is applying to those who are applying for immigrant visa or green card from abroad at the U.S. consulate. This does not mean USCIS has stopped working. This doesn't mean that your approved petition is canceled. This doesn't mean that everyone is banned from the United States. And I want to make sure that I bring that clarity. It mainly impacts people who are outside of the US and who need to complete their process at the US Embassy or at the US Consulate. Now, it is important to know the difference between the immigrant visa pause versus the travel ban. And that is what is driving a lot of confusion among a lot of people. A travel ban that was announced for certain countries, not all the 75 countries, a travel ban is about who can enter the US, and it usually blocks people based on their nationality from entering the United States. Now, that's very different than the current visa pauses, which is whether the consulate can issue an immigrant visa, and it's not about blocking everyone from entering the United States. It's just a pause. For example, if you're already a green card holder, you can still travel. If you are in the United States applying for a green card within the United States, such as, in other words, you're applying for adjustment of status, this doesn't stop your case. Now, from certain people who are also subject to the travel ban, things might look a little bit different. Some of the people who belong to the travel ban countries are also in the list of the immigrant pause, list of countries on an immigrant pause. But the focus of my talk today is right now mainly for immigrant visa pause. And my focus is to be able to tell everyone the difference between the immigrant visa pause and the travel ban. Now, the countries like Ethiopia or Pakistan or Thailand who are not on the travel ban, this is what applies to them, and that's what we're focusing on today in our today's call. Now, if you are on a student or work visa, this pause is not aimed at you. The main group that are affected are the people who are waiting for their immigrant visa at the US consulate overseas. Now, who does this immigrant visa actually affect? And let me give you some real examples. Now, one of the category of people that this immigrant visa pause affects is spouses of a U.S. citizen. For example, if John Doe is a U.S. citizen and she filed for an I-130 petition for her husband who lives abroad, the case is approved and the National Visa Center is waiting for an interview, the husband is likely affected because the husband needs an immigrant visa from the U.S. consulate. Now, this doesn't mean that the husband would not be able to continue with the process. The husband in this scenario would be able to continue to submit all of their documents to the National Visa Center, become documentary qualified, and in fact, the U.S. Embassy would schedule an interview and conduct an interview. What this means is that in this scenario, Jane Doe's husband won't be immediately after the interview at the U.S. consulate, won't be getting his immigrant visa and his passport until the pause is cleared. Let me give you guys another example of a group of people that this pause affects. Now, let's say John Doe is a U.S. citizen who's petitioned for his mother or his father overseas. Now, he already submitted the document to the National Visa Center. Now, he is also likely to be affected by this pause because this is an immigrant visa petition and the final step is done at the U.S. consulate processing. Now, another example is So the previous example was parents of a U.S. citizen. Now another example is employment-based immigration. Let's say a nurse with an approved I-140 is waiting for an immigrant visa interview abroad. This is also affected by immigrant pause if they are, if they were born in one of those, 75 countries that are listed on an immigrant pause. Now, what are the common factors in these examples that I gave? The common factors in these examples that I gave is the person is outside of the U.S. and the person needs an immigrant visa from the U.S. consulates. Now, let's talk about who is not affected. Generally, these group of people are not affected by immigrant visa pause, the current pause. Someone who's inside the U.S. filing for adjustment of status, someone who's seeking to enter the U.S. on a non-immigrant visa, such as student visa, visiting visa, it's a J1 exchange visa, and any of the non-immigrant visa, work visa, H1B, non-immigrant work visa, any non-immigrant visa is not affected by this. Also, asylum cases or family members of an asylees are not affected by this. Now, I can give you an example of one of our recent cases. One of our clients from Ethiopia who was granted asylum in the United States and had petitioned for their spouse and children in Ethiopia, they were worried about whether they would be affected by this pause. But I'm happy to announce that the spouse and the children were able to get their I-730 or their asylum visa as a dependent granted like 2 days ago, and they were able to get their visas in their passport. So this tells me that a dependent of an asylee would not be affected by this or not affected by this pause, immigrant visa pause. Now, another example I can give you guys that's not affected by this pause is those who are applying for fiancés or K1 visas. It can be argued that a K1 visa is a non-immigrant visa, although the intention is that the fiancé would come and get married and apply for a green card within the U.S. But the visa, the K1 visa itself, is categorized as a non-immigrant visa. It's a one-time single entry non-immigrant visa. So those who are wanting to petition or apply for their, their fiancés to come to the United States, very likely are not subject to immigrant visa and would be able to, proceed. Another group of people who are not subject to this is if you are a dual national to a country that's not listed on those 75 countries of immigrant visa pause. So let's say I'm a dual national of Ethiopia and let's say Germany. Germany is not listed on that 75 countries of immigrant pauses. If I'm using my German passport, right, to apply for immigrant visa, right, if my spouse's U.S. citizen spouse is filing for me, I was born in Ethiopia, but I'm a citizen of Germany, I'll be using my German passport to apply for immigrant visa. I would not be subject to immigrant pause. Now I know that Ethiopia doesn't have dual citizenship, but certain countries that have dual citizenship or allow for dual citizenship, as long as you are a dual citizen of another country or national of another country that's not on that list, and you use that passport to apply, you can still get your immigrant visa. Now, here are some of the common myths that I've been hearing that I want to address. I hear that my approved I-130 is canceled. That's not true. Your I-130, your immigrant visa petition will get approved, will get sent to the National Visa Center, and will not get canceled because of this immigrant visa pause. You do need to make sure that you continue to communicate with the National Visa Center or the U.S. Embassy at least once a year, so that the I-130 is not terminated. But the I-130 or the immigrant visa petition is not going to get terminated because of this immigrant visa pause. Another myth that I've been hearing is we should withdraw our case. You should absolutely not withdraw your case. You should file, you should continue, you should submit every single documents that are required. You should update your civic documents. Make sure your National Visa Center, your National Visa Center documents are up to date and you're documentary qualified. You should attend the interview and submit whatever documents that you're asked for, right? And just wait until this pause is removed, and then you would be notified to then submit your passport and be able to get your immigrant visa. So you should absolutely not withdraw your case. You should absolutely attend your interviews, and you should absolutely submit all your documents and keep it up to date. Another myth is no one can file a new case. That is absolutely not true. Yes, you can file petitions with USCIS. There is no pause for that. Again, as long as you're not subject, one of those countries that are subject to the, some of the other travel bans, but you should absolutely, regardless, the petition, there's nothing stopping anyone from filing that petition, and you should absolutely file that petition. Another myth is spouses of a U.S. citizen are automatically exempt. That is not true. If you are going through the U.S. consulate, you would be subject to the visa pause, immigrant visa pause. Now, I do want to kind of bring some also happy note to all of this. Is that a lot of you might be aware of this already, and a lot of you might already been following this already, and a lot of you have asked me about this already, but there is a new lawsuit has been filed by organizations and attorneys challenging the immigrant visa pause, arguing that the government does not have authority to stop immigrant visa issuance this broadly, and that the pause violates immigration laws passed by Congress, and that it's unlawfully separating U.S. citizens from their families. Now, this is a good hope. This is important and gives hope. But right now, the pause is still in effect. However, we're going to closely follow the lawsuit and be hopeful that the lawsuit would be, positive, and would be able to, remove this pause. This pause will be removed very soon. Now, here are some smart approaches. The smart approach is continue to file your applications, continue to file your petitions, continue to submit all your documents. Talk to an immigration attorney if you're not sure whether you can file or not, if you're not sure whether you're subject to the travel ban versus the immigrant pause and whether you can file. And, hope that the lawsuit would succeed, and make sure you continue as normal with every step of your process, because you want to make sure that everything is set, it's good, that once this pause is lifted, your spouse, your family member can immediately then get the immigrant visa. So if you don't take action now, if you don't do what's needed now, you can delay the process once the pause is lifted. So don't panic and don't abandon your case. Keep submitting your documents to the National Visa Center if required. Attend any appointments unless canceled by the government or the U.S. Embassy in this situation. Keep your documents updated, your police certificate, medical, civic documents, and speak to a qualified immigration attorney before making any major decision. Now, I do want to close with this, that immigration is not over. Your case is not automatically canceled. And strategy right now matters more than ever. Now, we're closely monitoring the changes, a lot of changes happening in immigration on daily basis, and we're closely monitoring all the changes, updating our clients, creating new strategies, and making sure we continue to fight for the immigrant communities and our clients. And so we'll keep continuing to update you with any changes and updates that might be important to you guys. And I hope that this live has been helpful to everybody. I also want to address couple of questions. Now, a couple of questions that I have received is, should I still file for an I-130 for my spouse? Yes, filing now protects your place in line and make sure that everything is ready once the pause is lifted. Another question is, my interview was scheduled, will it be canceled? The Department of State have clearly announced that they're gonna continue interviewing. They're not canceling interviews. This has been the experience of our office and our clients as well. No interviews has been canceled. Our clients been going to interviews, and at the end of the interview, they're getting this interview result sheet that says visa refusal or 221G or 221F. But don't panic, because that's not like a final denial. It's not like a final denial on your case. It's just a temporary refusal until the pause is cleared. So if you've already gone for an interview and got that letter that says visa refused or so on and so forth, don't panic. This is not this is not a final denial. This is just a temporary refusal until the pause is lifted. Can my spouse visit on a tourist visa instead? Now, as I said, non-immigrant visas are not under this pause, so you can definitely still apply for a tourist visa. However, it can be risky if you have a pending immigrant visa. So you should definitely get a legal advice first and talk about the the chances and risk involved before doing so. Are U.S. citizen spouses exempt? No, not necessarily. If they are going through the U.S. consulate, like if your foreign national spouse lives outside of the United States and has to go to the U.S. embassy, they're not exempt. But if they already live in the United States, they're here in the U.S., they came with a visa, like a non-immigrant visa, and they're already in the U.S., they can definitely file for adjustment of status in the United States. All right. Seems like that's all the questions that I have so far. Well, I hope this was helpful for everybody. We'll be back with more updates with you guys. Thank you for being here, and I really appreciate it. Feel free to contact our office. You can reach our office with any case-specific questions at 408-292-7995, or you can visit our website at www.ethiopianattorney.com. Have a great weekend.